Welcome back to another episode of the STI Killer Evo 6, presented by Koyorad. There's no engine or suspension left on this car, so I guess that means today is chassis cleanup time. If you've been following along with this series, then you'll know that we've stripped this car down to the bare bones here. We've got no engine or drivetrain in it. We've got no suspension underneath it. It is truly a bare chassis at this point, and stay tuned for what we think is going to be a really fun engine build. But in the meantime, we've got some other things to take care of, like getting this factory engine harness out of here. We weren't necessarily thinking of replacing the harness, because we're just going to put the motor back in, and we could have plugged it all back in again. But Ohm Racing very generously offered to build us a proper racing spec harness. So we are going to send this off to them, and I guess they're going to use the connectors and so on to build us a custom harness.
I think what they're going to do is look at the lengths, because this is a right-hand drive car. They don't do many of these, so they just want to use it for reference. And
makes sense.
Yeah, because I think those connectors, a lot of them are old. I cracked a couple taking them off too.
Okay.
Yeah, so
then they may not necessarily use the connectors. They need the routing.
Yep.
Makes sense. And as we discovered when we were pulling the motor out and kind of stripping things out of here, it's really tricky to route this harness back through the firewall. If you look down in this area, there's just there's no room under here to get at anything. And we've unplugged it from the inside, and we've tried pulling it through the firewall, but it's just not budging. So we're not exactly sure how to solve this problem. Pete, have you done any more research on it or given it more thought?
I searched the internet and there were no answers. So I think we're on our own on this. So you guys are going to just follow along here as we try to figure this out.
Well, just taking a look at this area here, we just had to do unbolt this bracket that holds the ABS module here in this spot where we want better access. So we're thinking if we can kind of move this out of the way without tweaking any of the lines or whatever, we're going to see if we can just buy ourselves a bit of room here. So take a couple of these 12mm bolts out of here and see how much room we can buy. All right, we've got this bracket out that holds the bracket on for the pump. Brackets on brackets and a million bolts, but you can see it does give us better access to the grommet on the firewall here, which...
Not by much though. Wow.
No, it doesn't buy us a lot of room, but it does give us some wiggle room here too, so it might help, but I'm not sure that's going to be a difference maker or not. So if you look underneath this rubber grommet here, you can see there's a white plastic sort of clip, I don't know what you collar, I guess you'd call this, a white plastic collar here. And it sort of snaps into the firewall opening with these little tabs. So we use just an interior a trim tool to kind of pry it out of there. We might have broken one of the tabs on there, but not a big deal, I don't think. In any case, we can start to try to pull this through the firewall, but it doesn't seem to want to move that much, does it? So
no, and it's stuck. It's still stuck, and it's tight, and holy
one of us under the dash pushing, the other one pulling. Well, we've had a good look under the dash here, and it appears like the engine harness actually connects to part of the dash harness, which goes underneath the center console area to the AYC computer, an ABS module, and an airbag module. Odd that they would integrate that into the engine harness the way they have, but to get that disconnected is really difficult with the dash in the car. It just so happens that Pete has actually sourced a replacement dash for this car because there were a bunch of holes in this dash that he wasn't happy with, aesthetically speaking. So we figured, why not kill two birds with one stone here? We're gonna pull the dash out because we got to do that anyway, and that'll give us better access to what's left of this harness, be able to unplug it properly and really get a good look at it, and then send it off to Ohm Racing and let them figure it out.
We're going down a rabbit hole here, aren't we, though?
We are, but why not, right? I mean, it's an excuse to pull the dash, a job we have to do anyway, so let's have at it.
wasn't too difficult, right, DP?
Getting the dash out wasn't terrible.
Yeah,
no?
it wasn't way easier than a lot of other cars we've done. That's the beauty of late 90s Japanese cars. Everything does come out pretty easily. However, the harness is still a pain in the butt. I'm still working on it, trying to get these damn plugs under here to disconnect, and they are gonna fight me a little bit. So I'm gonna keep working on this. Like, they just wrap these around. There's just so many of them. I don't understand why they just didn't put a connector right here.
Exactly.
So you could disconnect that and then pull it through the firewall. Like, look at, there's just so many. Like, this whole harness right here has to come out, which is just unbelievable how many plugs there are. We've made a little bit more progress. We've got everything disconnected, but I am looking at this and just kind of bewildered how all of this is gonna pass through that small hole in the firewall. Considering there's so little space, like we would have to remove the whole like heater core, AC, blower motor assembly here. I had to already loosen it to just like get it to move a little bit further out so I could get at a lot of these wires.
I feel like we just went deep sea fishing and we finally reeled in the big one. This thing is like a 20-pound harness.
This harness.
It is preposterous. You can see this is the engine bay side where the rubber grommet is. So this is all engine harness on the front side. This is that weird plastic clip that foiled us for a while. Once we got that out, we thought, okay, we'll just pull it straight through, except you've got your typical like harness that goes to the ECU, and it's got like half a chassis harness attached to it too. And we thought, you know, there's got to be a plug in here somewhere to disconnect it, but nope. It is just built into the engine harness.
And you know what it made it worse is these damn clips here are attached like underneath the heater core and everything there. So
getting those off is a nightmare.
This was not meant to come out without like pretty much stripping the inside of this car.
I think they think you're never going to change your engine harness or really service any of the electricals the way they've designed it.
Is this supposed to be a rally car? What? Like
weird. Yeah, I'm really puzzled by it. In any case, this is an opportunity for us to send it to Ohm Racing and say, listen, make a disconnect here and maybe a disconnect here as well. And then, you know, the engine harness just separates out cleanly. So our deep sea fishing expedition, I think, has paid off in the sense that we'll be able to like make it serviceable, make it much cleaner. So look at this mess though. Thank you, Ohm Racing, for signing up for this job. You probably didn't realize what a nasty mess we were going to send you, including some like weird harness that's on here. Is this from like
aftermarket stuff?
Maybe the lights they put on the front of this car or something. But in any case, time to throw this in the mail. And
we should show people the problem we have with the dash, though, because I think it's a pretty serious one. As some of you may recall, the reason we removed this dash is these two wonderful holes here. Wow, those are pretty big, kind of nasty. I wanted to replace them with a proper clean dash. So Craig over at Bonsai Rides sourced this for me. I actually found it on Yahoo Japan and ended up buying it thinking it would work. And you know, when you look at it, it's actually in pretty decent shape. There's a small couple little like scratches here and there, but nothing as bad as that. However, if you look closely, can you see the difference? What's going on here? Here, let me hold it up like that. This is gray, this is black. And the closer I look at it and scrutinize it, I'm like, man, I just don't think I can run this gray dash in this car. And I'm not sure whether this is an Evo 5 dash that was advertised as a 6, or maybe 6s came in gray and some came in black. Nevertheless, I'm in quite a pickle here because I don't know what to do. Should I now try to fix this dash? Like, these two holes aren't terrible. Maybe there's a way to fix this with that, but like
plastic welding and
I don't know. Like, can you even get it to look decent? So
you know what? If we plastic welded those holes closed and then maybe flocked the dash, that might work.
Oh, but then you gotta flock the whole dash. Like, I don't know. Maybe you guys in the comments let me know. I'm gonna look around. Maybe one of the guys out west. There's a lot of Evo guys out there, maybe they have a black dash for me. Someone might have one, but otherwise I think we're just gonna have to leave this be for now. We're gonna leave it, not put this back in anyways, because we've got to send the harness out and all that jazz. So with that being said,
the gray one black maybe?
I've never seen paint work well on this plastic, and especially the the vinyl, like it
Just doesn't look
eventually
good, eh?
ends up flaking away.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I just don't know, DP. I think we're gonna just sit on this. I'm sure an answer will come to us, but I think it's time to move on. And that is, now we're gonna do a bunch of chassis work, and we're gonna start off by, I think, dropping the gas tank, because I wanna see, if the fuel pump has been upgraded, and I've heard that with these cars you have to drop the gas tank to actually upgrade the fuel pump. So let's get to it. Mitsubishi isn't winning any points with me today. As I suspected, there is no way to access the fuel pump without actually cutting these hard lines here to pull the pump out. So what we're gonna have to do is actually drop this tank, which is fine, because I guess we're gonna treat the whole bottom end of this chassis anyways, so it's not a huge deal. We'll be able to do this side. Underneath, we're looking at, I think, 4 nuts that hold the tank in place, and obviously there's fuel lines, a couple of breather lines that need to be disconnected here, and our rusty filler neck, which, would you check that out? I sourced a non-rusty one. I'm so happy to have found this. There's, as I said, there's a bunch of guys out on the west coast of Canada that have a bunch of these 5s and 6s, and they've been around for a while, and they've parted them out, and they got some clean stuff, so I sourced that from them.
Have it, everyone. Gas tank is down, and it's actually pretty easy, wasn't it, Pete?
Yeah, it wasn't too hard.
Nothing too difficult about it, and really it's not in terrible shape. I mean, yeah, there's, you know, a lot of like surface rust along this back edge, which I suppose to be like the most exposed part of the tank, but the top side is in good shape. I don't think we have any reason to replace the tank. I think it's just a matter of like clean it up. Maybe we'll throw that encapsulator on top of the rusty areas, and then maybe some like paint on top of that to seal it all up, and we'll call it good. And I think more or less we're going to do the same under here. I mean, you can see
I'm glad we dropped it now, right?
Yeah, it's good to get a look, and I mean, you can see underneath where the tank was, it's in good shape. There's a little bit of like tiny bits of surface rust here and there, but the worst of it is really like back in these corners, I guess, where the moisture and, you know, salt and stuff would have got trapped along this back area in here, which even so isn't terrible, but you can see there's a little bit of loose flaky stuff. So we'll scrub all that off, we'll encapsulate it, and we'll coat it. And it's not gonna be like show car perfect. We're really not trying to make this, you know, perfection. We just want to clean it up, prevent further spread of rust, and make it look a little better by, you know, making it all one uniform color. So ultimately it's not about making it pretty though, it's about preventing the rust from spreading and saving what is a pretty rare and special chassis. So it may not be rare and special enough to beat the STI, but at least we want to treat it right and get her looking half decent here. So without further ado, I think it's time we just start.
You know what? Actually, before we get into the whole rust removal, I want to see.
Oh, right, of course, the
fuel pump.
Yeah, you're right.
Let's see what we've got in here.
Yeah. Well, as you can see, we were able to get the pump assembly out of the tank here just by leaving these lines connected rather than, you know, fiddling with the hoses and stuff to get them off. That was a stroke of genius by our man PT here, and strangely, we have the sending unit and the pump all in one assembly here. I thought for sure in the other hole over here we'd have the level, but no, I guess that's just a pump to distribute fluid back and fuel back and forth to the two sides of the tank. Anyway, it's clearly the OEM pump in here.
Yes.
So the previous owner was not that serious about making horsepower, because I can't imagine this pump would support more than, I don't know, 300 or 350 or something. So we're gonna pull that puppy out of there and swap in our go-to fuel pump. We seem to use these in everything these days. This is our AEM 340 liter per hour pump. It's as you can see right on here, it is rated to 340 liters per hour at 40 psi. And the green housing means it's ethanol compatible. So it's
green means go, right?
Green means go, exactly. Means go with your E85 mixture and make even more jam, which fortunately we don't get at the pump up here. So we will not be tuning this thing on E85 because it's just too inconvenient. We'd have to have like barrels of it around the shop here and stuff, which...
We've got that new VP Racing Octanium that we're going to be using.
Yeah, that worked amazing in the STI, so why not run it in this car too? So yeah, we're gonna fit this in here. It looks like it's going to be
it shouldn't be too
pretty
difficult.
plug and play, doesn't it? The dimensions look identical. So let's slap that in there and have a look. There we have it, AEM pump in its new home, and it's very close to a direct plug-in fit. Even the wiring plug was like super close to plugging in there, but we put in the AEM plug just to be on the safe side. And it is now ready to go back in its home here in the gas tank. We're just getting ready to paint the underside of the car here, and as you can see, we have done some taping off of threaded studs and bolt holes, and just basically prepping the underside here so that we don't damage any threaded areas where we're going to want to be able to put a nut or a bolt back in the hole. And next we're going to go around with a bit of Scotch-Brite 3M type pad to scuff the whole underside of the car and knock off any of the like loose rust to prep it for sealing and painting. And then for sealing, we are going to use this DEI surface prep spray. So this is both a primer, a sealer, and a rust converter. And it goes on basically clear, but will dry to a black finish. And it's primed at that point. And then we're going to throw a top coat on of this DEI spray-on boom mat. And as the, if you guys are familiar with boom mat products, it is both a thermal barrier and a noise barrier. So it's going to have sort of like a rubbery undercoating type feel to it. And it's really good at both adding a sound deadening effect to the chassis. So it'll really help quiet down road noise in the wheel wells and on the whole underside of the car. And if you know anything about Evos, you know they don't have a lot of sound deadening in them. They're pretty light on that kind of stuff. So this will help raise the level of ride quality, quietness, and sophistication in this car a little bit. It won't be STI level, but it'll be closer than it is. It's a bit of a tin can at the moment. And it also is a thermal barrier. So down the center tunnel, a lot of that heat that will be radiating into Pete's backside will reduce that a little bit, because he's going to be hot and bothered in there as it is as I beat up on him.
Come on, this is going to be BMW-esque after we coat it underneath.
It's going to be full luxury spec under here for sure. And you can, by the way, paint over this if you want to paint match. So if we wanted to go ahead and like paint the whole underside silver again afterward, we could do that over top of this boom mat spray on, but we're not going to. We're just going to leave it black under here, and maybe in the engine bay or the front cross member we'll actually paint those silver because those are more visible areas, but under here we're not too worried about it. Should also mention this does seal out any kind of moisture, so it will prevent rust from setting in. And of course this primer and rust converter is going to convert what rust we do have into a metal or an iron that's not going to rust anymore. So this should, I think, give us what we want as far as like preventing this car from rusting any more than it is. Although frankly, it's really not that bad. It's just mostly surface rust. But
yeah, it really is.
We want to make it as good as we can anyway, and make her last another, what, 20 years. So I think that's enough talk, PT. Let's get to some scrubbing and some spraying. Boom, or should I say boom mat, and no pun intended, because wow, it's like a whole new car under here,
That's
man.
amazing.
This is a transformation. I can see why people enjoy painting, because it's so gratifying to see the transformation that happens in a relatively short period of time. Like we're maybe three hours or so into this job, including all the prep work and all the cleaning, and then the spraying of the rust inhibitor, or the, what's it called, the rust encapsulator, and then spraying on the boom mat.
And you know what, like the prep work we did really wasn't that
basic.
thorough.
Yeah, it was very basic, really. We just gave it a good scrub down with that 3M and wiped it down with a bit of acetone, and then went straight into the encapsulator and then let it dry, and then boom mapped it, and man, it is amazing. It kind of makes me like this car like 50% more. Just looking at it, it feels
like a new car underneath, man. Like all that nasty rust is gone. I love it.
Yeah, so then I started to think, we went through 7 cans of this and 2 cans of the rust encapsulator, and I thought, how much are we into this for financially? And jumped on Amazon, and a 6-pack of this is $62 US. So it's dirt cheap, and the encapsulator is like 15 bucks a can. We also got a paint matched can of silver just to touch up the front cross member here. And the beauty of the boom mat is we can spray over it. So anywhere that we feel like maybe we got a little bit of overspray, and really it's easy to control for overspray. We really didn't have any issues with that. But if we want to like respray the pinch welds or something, we can go back and do that because you can paint over it. So pretty amazing stuff. I am completely sold. In fact, I'm so sold on this. I'm thinking Connie Celica, or Connie Celica if you're from America, needs to get this on the whole underside of her chassis, because it gives it such a, I don't know, just a nice finish, and it has all the benefits of sound deadening. It's a heat barrier. It seals out any moisture, so it's also going to help prevent rust. It's just a win-win-win for me. So wow, man, I'm actually kind of excited about this project now, Pete. You finally won me over with the Evo.
Yes.
I think. All it took was 3 hours of paint work, and we're there. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. Really, we hope you enjoyed this action-packed episode, and maybe it's time to cut to the beauties and give you a really good close-up look of all this hard work. Look at this gem we just pulled out from underneath the dash. It's a Blitz Fat full auto turbo timer. Talk about a politically incorrect name. Don't call me fat, everybody. Call me thick with 2 C's.